Hey friends, this is the Miss Volfie from our half-acre homestead. Well, today's the day I start the wedding quilt. Now, I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 100% positive that none of my nephews and nieces watch my videos, so I'm not going to worry about it. But my nephew Andrew is getting married in October, and that gives me, what is this, June, July, August, September. It gives me 4 months to do a quilt start to finish. So let's get started. Okay, I hope you can see. Now I'm cheating, folks. I don't have the time or the hands to do a lot of hand cutting. So I went online and I bought, these are 2.5 inch strips of white and off-white and white on white. And when Andrew told me he was getting married, I asked him what their colors were, like what kind of colors they like. Isn't that pretty? It's tied with a bow that's a piece of measuring tape. And he said earth tones. So I actually bought a jelly roll of earth tone fabrics. If I can find where it starts. Here's where it starts. Because I have to do this actually quite fast. So I'm saving myself one cutting step. Now I can't remember what the name of this quilt is, but it's a 4-patch quilt. It's really simple, but it can be really beautiful too. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing these and these together, just like that. Okay. So, right now, this is all I'm doing. I'm sewing strips together, one dark, one light. So when I have a bunch of these sewn together and I start cutting and pressing, I will be back. I've just sewn together the 4 sets of strips and I'm going to start cutting them. Now, because my original piece was 2.5 inches wide, I need my next set of pieces to be 2.5 inches wide. So let's just get this all lined up and we'll start trimming. And now we're going to go up to 2.5. And be careful, folks. Sometimes it's really easy to make a mistake between 2.5 and 2.25. And once you cut it, it is done. So as in carpentry with quilting, measure twice, cut once. Now I need 400 of these little things. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like once I have it cut. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sew these 2 pieces together. Always pick your seam allowance, guys, and stick to it. Keep your edges always as close together as possible so that you don't have anything off and running in different directions. Measuring and precise cutting is the key. So I'm going to need 200 of these. I better get to work. We'll be back when I have these done, and then we'll go into making this into a bigger block. Okay, this is what I've got done so far. And yes, you see this on my ironing board, which fits my sewing table just nicely. What I'm doing is, if you don't like to iron, folks, don't quilt, because the best quilts, it's really important for the crispness of your quilt that you iron the blocks at each stage of production. So what I've got here is I've got 25 browns, 42 in blues, and 34 in the lighter golds. As I do that, as you can see, I put a little piece of paper and I actually do just a loose stitch, and I just stitch it right through the block and tie it with the number of blocks on it. And as I make them, I'm just putting them in this cardboard box so they don't get lost until I continue the rest. Okay, folks, now I've got all 288 sets of 4 blocks ready. That's why you don't see me sewing. It would be so boring to sit here and watch me cut and sew and cut and sew. This is the way it's working out. I needed 288 4-patch blocks, and now I need 288 coordinating blocks to go with the 4 patches. Now folks, take it from me. If you're going to do or try and make a shortcut like I did and order jelly roll strips online, make sure you order enough, especially if you're ordering a set of specific fabrics. The fabric jelly roll I got a jelly roll, and then I got coordinating whites and white on whites. But the problem is I then needed 4.5-inch blocks to coordinate with the 4 blocks. And guess what? I didn't have enough coordinating fabric. So I went to buy more. Guess what? They're sold out. And it is really hard to find. So I ended up going to Fabricland and going online and going through my scraps to find enough coordinating fabric to go with these blocks. For instance, this was not in the jelly roll, but it goes enough with the earth tones of this quilt that I can get away with it. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to start sewing my main blocks. This is the block that I need 144 of. That's where I got the number for 288 4 patches and 288 coordinating squares. And that makes 144 of these main blocks, which gives me a 12 by 12. Because these, I want a 12 by 12 because it's a queen size. And these blocks, once finished, are only 9 inches. They're only 9 inches square. Now, instead of cutting up all the squares to go with the coordinating, I have put my blocks in piles of coordinating colors, and I have numbered them. I have written them all down, how many of these 4 squares I have. Why? Because if I have right here, like I added 8 blue ones after the fact, so I have 50 blue squares that are like this. Now I know that I have to cut 50 4.5-inch complementary squares. So don't go willy-nilly, folks. If you're doing something where you're combining colors and stuff and you've got a specific amount of blocks in mind, start adding up your blocks as you go in bunches of colors. And that way you know exactly how many to cut for that particular pile of 4 blocks. So now we go from a 4-patch to a 4-patch with a solid color accent. And then we take another one and we turn it around and we sew it into this block. This is the main block. Now at this point you may think putting this together is simple, but don't make that mistake, folks. I just put these squares on upside down. You see that? These are supposed to be white up in the corners like that one, and white down at the bottom like that one. It is a mistake that we all make, but just keep your first block on the desk in front of you or on the sewing table in front of you so you can check it out and double check, because you really don't want to mess up at this point when we're so close. And I've been at this for a long time and I still made that mistake. The best way from preventing that mistake from happening is to keep your solid blocks and your 4 blocks in such a way that all you have to do is you've got them all exactly lined up the same, and you just have to flip this over and then sew it along that seam so that when you open it, it looks like this. And then you do the same with the next one. They look exactly the same, except you turn this one around and sew them together. Anyway, This is the Mrs. Volfie from our half-acre homestead, and this is step 1 of the wedding quilt. Now, it's not called the wedding quilt. It's just a 4-patch quilt, okay? It's just a 4-patch quilt. I'm calling it the wedding quilt because that's what it's for. All right? We'll see you when it comes time for the next step, probably in a couple of weeks. Take care. God bless.